Hey guys, welcome back to the Blue Podcast. This is the Purple Show. Today I'm joined by Nick. How are you doing today, mate?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you.
Good. Harry, I'm also joined by a new face on the show. Harry, welcome. How are we?
Yeah, good, thank you. Happy
Good.
to be here on the
Oh,
Purple Show.
that's what we like to hear, mate. So for those of you that don't know, well, you should know Nick already from the Red and White Show. He's another Forest fan like myself. If you don't know Harry, he's a big Liverpool fan, and we figured that would be sort of like a nice little one to play off given the result last weekend. Where better place to start than there? Forest versus Liverpool. As you probably all know by now, Forest did win 1-0. Massive win, by the way. Probably upset. Well, I know it upset a lot of Liverpool fans if you're just even going as far as the Sky Sports pundits and Twitter. So, Nick, let's start with you. First thoughts. I mean, I know you must have been very excited about the win. In fact, you were telling me before the show where you spent most of the match hiding behind the bed. Was that correct?
I did, yeah. I was hiding behind the sofa for the entire last 30 minutes. Very nerve-wracking. And we know what Liverpool and Forest are like. Liverpool tend to get some late winners and get a draw perhaps when they don't deserve it, or get a win when they don't deserve it. And Forest have a tendency to chuck things away when maybe they shouldn't have done. I mean, Bournemouth and Fulham are two good examples there. And truth be told, I didn't see it coming, to be honest with you. Obviously, we've seen a gradual progression since the Leicester game. Picked up a couple of good draws away at Brighton and at home to Villa. I mean, is a draw at home to Villa that good a result under Steven Gerrard? Probably not, but a point in the right direction will take it. So obviously we've become a lot more solid since we were conceding a lot of goals early on in the season. Changed to 4 at the back. And it's funny, I think Sean Dyche has sort of inspired Steve Cooper's selection with the quote he had at the start of the season: "You do not survive in the Premier League without 3 in midfield." So I think Steve Cooper's taken that on board, dropped one of the centre backs and put another one in midfield, which has obviously definitely helped.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on it there. We've only actually lost one of the last 4 games, albeit if you watch the Brighton and Villa games, we were atrocious, but it's still 2 points out of 2 games that were definitely ones we'd been expected to lose. How good has Ryan Yates been, by the way? I mean, you talked there about a midfield 3, and I know that most of the Forest fan base has written Ryan Yates off at one point or the other, myself definitely included. He's been fantastic though, hasn't he?
Yeah, everything about Ryan Yates suggests he shouldn't be a good Premier League footballer, but his determination, his grit, and his just willingness to stick his head where other footballers wouldn't gives him an extra edge and sort of a bit of pride playing for Forest, because obviously we brought in all these players. Don't have too much emotional attachment to the football club, but Ryan Yates certainly adds that and probably makes up for the other 10. Yeah, throughout his career at Forest for the last 5 or 6 years, he's sort of been he's divided opinion, let's say, within the Forest fan base. A lot of fans have said he's not been good enough, and that was even in the Championship. And now he makes yet another step up and seems to be proving the doubters wrong, I suppose. He's doing quite well at the minute. I mean, all can change. A lot of Forest fans are very fickle, so I'm sure if he has a bad game next time, he'll be the worst player in the world. But
Not you included, Nick.
Sorry?
Are you not one of the fickle Forest fans?
Well, I'm a bit guilty of being a bit fickle. Yes, I am, Harry. Yeah. Only a few weeks ago, I think I wanted them all sacked. So at the minute, I'll be very complimentary of every single player that's played for Forest this season. But you catch me next week when we're playing against Arsenal, it's probably a different story.
Yeah, you might be right. Yeah, you might be right there. And speaking of players that aren't doing so well, I mean, Mo Salah's kind of the standout at the moment. What did he register? 4 touches against Forest. Again, that's poor by anybody's standards, never mind somebody that has been in the last few years one of the best players in the Premier League. Harry, obviously that was a pretty terrible result for Liverpool. Mo Salah, is he the main problem? Or, I mean, people have talked a lot about the role of Darwin Núñez and how that sort of shifted Salah out of focus. How do you see that?
I think it's quite silly to pin the blame on any specific area of the team. I think it's the main problem we've had this season is we are so unimaginative and uncreative. If you watched, like you both did, a lot of that Forest game, we had the ball just past the halfway line, playing it from, I can't remember, it's probably Simicast playing to Trent, to Van Dijk, back to Gomez for most of the game, and we did have most of the ball, but we did nothing with it, and we didn't look to do anything with it. We looked too comfortable having 60%, 70% possession for a lot of this game, with absolutely no threat going forward. You can't have that much of the ball and not offer anything on the front foot. But a lot of that is down to when you're playing a midfield three that has Jordan Henderson, Fabinho, it was probably Harvey Elliott. There's no imagination there. Poor Elliott can't do it on his own. Henderson, well, he looks like he watches black and white telly. And Fabinho is a DM. No one of these players can be expected to create. Salah's so far up the pitch that he isn't there to connect with the midfield. Gosh knows what Nunes is doing for most of the game. He wasn't playing versus Forest, but a lot of the time he's so unpredictable. He'll either have an absolute blinder, like last night for instance, against Ajax. He missed an absolute sitter, but then scored a great header. Versus West Ham, he looked unhinged. He was firing all these shots out from gosh knows where, hitting the posts, forcing saves. But then when he has an easy chance, he doesn't tend to take them. So you never know what you're going to get with that man. Diaz, I think, is consistently our best player. He's been out for gosh knows how long. But the problem is really down to the lack of imagination that we have in this football team. I think we've been figured out. I think everyone knows we've been figured out. But I don't see a way that can change until we have a creative midfielder in our side. So,
but this is the thing. Do you not think Thiago fills that role? Or I mean, you've touched on how Elliott's young.
We're better with Thiago playing.
Yeah.
The problem is he's got Walker's crisps for legs. He's injured every other week. Naby Keita can't get a consistent run of games. All our creative midfielders, like sat on the bench in leg casts, they can't string a decent run of games together. And as soon as they're back in the lineup, we wrap them up in bubble wrap. They'll play 60 minutes of the game and then get taken off when we're 0-0. And then again, we offer nothing for the rest of the game. I think a lot of our fan base got carried away after our win versus Man City, but they didn't realise we were playing glorified hoofball. We were on the back foot for most of that game, playing long balls to Salah, who eventually got our goal. And yeah, we could have won maybe 3-0, but it was still playing hoofball, long balls over the top when City were desperate to get an equaliser or potentially a winner, which they always look like doing. Everyone's saying Haaland was pocketed. He had big chances. He just didn't score them. City were threatening with every attack, and that was a horrible game to watch. I've got no idea how we did win, but we did. And again, like when we beat Bournemouth 9-0 at the start of the season, we get exposed immediately a couple games down the line. We shouldn't have won. We shouldn't have beaten West Ham. But again, luckily we did. And it's just the cyclical nature of we have a big win that we didn't deserve.
But that's the thing. Go on. Sorry, Harry. I just want to interrupt because that's the thing, isn't it? You've talked a lot about how the team really hasn't been performing. You've got a lack of creativity. And yeah, against Man City, the quality of play wasn't great at times, but you still managed the result. You sat 8th in the table, which obviously isn't good, but you've still won 4 of the last 5 games, with the one loss being that sort of the one to Forest, which nobody really expected. Do you not think that, because a lot of people have talked about, is it the 6th or 7th season syndrome?
Yeah, whatever. That's a load of nonsense. I'm not buying any of that. We've been figured out. The injuries aren't helping, and the rest of the Premier League are doing really well. We haven't seen an Arsenal team performing like this for a very long time. Man City are consistent as usual. Newcastle, what are they doing on 21 points? You know, no one could have predicted this. It's a combination of we're not doing very well, but also the rest of the Premier League is doing well around us, which makes us look like we're doing worse.
Yeah, and it's true because the table is extremely tight at the moment. Like, probably, I don't know if anybody's actually like noticed how close together all of the teams are, especially in the mid-table. So obviously the top 4, even with the top 6, is very tight, because obviously, like you say, Newcastle's up there, they're in 4th, 21 points. Arsenal are sort of like, Arsenal and Man City are definitely leading. I mean, they're both, Arsenal's guaranteed top 4, I'd say now, and City, I think we all agree they're probably going to win the league. Do you see Liverpool making the jump into the top 4 still at the end of the season? I mean, you're not far off at all.
I think we will get Champions League football next season. And whether that's being in the top 4 or winning the Champions League, we will be there.
You really think you could win the Champions League this season?
I think we could, yeah. Because we've proved that on our day, we don't have to play good football. We can show up and win.
You think that's enough, Nick? Do you think that's enough to cut the mustard to win the Champions League? Just show up and hoofball?
Well, Atletico Madrid have had sort of I know obviously they got knocked out this year, but they've got a track record of sort of playing dodgy football and seems to do pretty well. I think it was the Champions League obviously going to come up against the best of the best, and teams like Bayern and Man City. I know obviously Liverpool beat Man City last week, but I was a bit lucky that result was. So we'll have to wait and see. I don't know. I think they've probably got a better chance at the top four. Like we said, the Premier League is so competitive this year, and Liverpool are victim to the same sort of thing we've been saying for the last couple of years. They haven't been adding to their squad when everyone else has. City have added Haaland, obviously. Arsenal have added a couple of players. Liverpool, you hear Klopp after the games consistently talking about, injuries. Well, I don't know if it's the owner or Klopp who it is, but they're not addressing it over the summer or over the January. They're not buying in any squad depth to combat the injury woes they seem to have, at least.
I don't think you can pin that on the manager, though, because I think any manager would want any amount of players at any time. Who would not want a big squad full of great players? So that's questions to be asked upstairs, not of Jurgen.
Yeah, like I said, whoever's at fault needs to address it, because it is holding you back, and it's probably held you back for maybe a couple of Premier League titles in the last 4 or 5 years. So I think the owner needs to get his wallet out and spend on some decent replacements for the likes of Salah, or, I mean, you got like Diaz injured, and who have you got playing at the left wing? You got Fabio Carvalho.
Well, it would be Jota, but he's also injured.
Yeah. Right. Well, go on.
Sorry, Nick, do you not think that the Liverpool owners have actually splashed? I mean, let's go back. Let's include the last 2 years in this. I mean, Jota, Diaz. I know they spent a lot on Nunes. Do you think it's poor investment? Obviously, I'm not saying that for Diaz and Jota, because they're both bargains essentially for what you get. But do you think it's been poor investment? That because every team has an injury crisis. Every team has injuries to significant players. Even at the bottom end, we have Niakate out, and we've had Mangala out, and
we've got 3 left backs injured.
Exactly, right? Every team has an injury problem. Do you think it's poor investment then? Obviously, Harry, I know you're saying it's not Jurgen Klopp's fault, but do you think it's poor investment that 70-odd million went on Nunes and nobody to cover his backup?
We needed a number 9 last summer, and that was the price, the market price for a young number 9 in the summer last year.
Would you not argue that, I know it was a different type of deal, but how did City get Haaland for 50 million if the market price was 75 for Darwin?
But if you really think that Man City got Haaland for, what was it, 50?
Yeah.
That's just to get access to him. Agent fees, wage. We can't afford that.
That's true. That is true. So were there really no alternatives out there? Obviously, we won't dive too much into it now, but
I've got no idea about the young number 9 prospects around the world, but I'm sure Nunes would have been second on a lot of people's list when they'd have gone for hot number 9s last summer because of his performance for Benfica in the league and also in the Champions League against us and other big teams. And they consistently produce top talent as well. They've got a track record of doing so. João Felix, he doesn't get the recognition he deserves at Atletico Madrid, but he's a really good player. And they have the right to ask for that sort of premium for a young number 9 with a decent track record. And I think because he hasn't hit the ground running, everyone's asking questions of his price tag. Is he worth it? Was he the right fit? But he scored 4 in his last 4 starts. He's played less minutes than Jesus. I know everyone sees this on their Instagram, but has scored the same amount of goals. And I think he's been written off far too early. I don't think he was a bad signing at all. Everyone said we were waiting out for Bellingham. We didn't want to buy him last summer, but I don't think we'll get him coming next year. I saw something today about a Tonali deal with Keita going the other way.
Yeah,
not sure what I think about that either. I don't think it'll happen. Who wants Naby Keita?
This is true, yeah. Although you definitely want Sandro Tonali, if we're being honest.
Oh, 100%. I think he's probably the next best after Bellingham.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
I think the elephant in the room here is the decision to let Sadio Mane go. Because when you leave him, when you let him go, you've got obviously a player Mane's quality void in the squad. You'd have him. This is why Salah was so effective for the last few years. Mane would pull players out to the other side, and you got sort of like a double threat coming in from both wings. If you've just got Salah as the main threat, then obviously a bit one-footed. You're just going to defend inside Salah, and you don't have to worry about anything other on the other wing because there's nothing really. I mean, Fabio Carvalho is very inexperienced in the Premier League. It's his first season, one of his first seasons of professional football. Obviously, you've got other players that have come in as well. I know Fabio Carvalho is not the first choice, but I think Mane is a big gap to fill, and I'm not sure they've really addressed that with the signing of Nunes. I think you probably need Nunes and keeping Mane rather than Nunes or Mane.
I somewhat agree, but I think the point that we haven't seen. So Klopp likes this 4-2-2-2 now as a substitution to the 4-3-3, and we haven't seen Diaz, Nunes, Salah, and Jota in this formation, or the 4-2-3-1 if we had all of those players fit. We haven't seen it because when Nunes plays, you said that Mane used to help distract defenders and give Salah a bit more space. That's exactly what Nunes does when he's playing with Salah. He's a big, tall Uruguayan man. Like, of course you're going to put defenders on him. You can't give him the space. As much as his temperamental finishing might be something to question, he gets the chances, and he's proven that he will eventually score. But Firmino doesn't offer that because he's chilling in centre mid with all the other guys.
Hang on, I actually think Firmino's done well this season.
Yeah,
he has. But he is very different to Nunes.
Yeah, but you've had success with that style. You've had success with the false nine.
With Mane.
But is Diaz, I guess Klopp's assumption was that Diaz would be a natural replacement for Mane, but whether it be
I think he is, but he hasn't been playing with. So if we had Diaz, Firmino, and Salah, it would probably work. But we haven't got Diaz, who was probably our best player coming to the latter end of last season, and the start of this season was definitely the most consistent.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I do agree with that. Let's touch on the other end of the table for a minute, because obviously we all know the World Cup's coming up. I think there's 3 games left in the Premier League before the break. Like I mentioned earlier, the table is extremely tight at the moment. I think there's only 7 points separating bottom, Forest, and Liverpool in 8th. So with 3 games to go, there's obviously a lot of room for teams to move around. Obviously, we've seen Leicester jump up the table quite a bit recently, and Leeds fall down in the other direction. I'll go to each of you, but Nick, I'll come to you first. Who do you think will be in the relegation zone on November 20, or whenever the World Cup starts?
I think the table is starting to correct itself a little bit. You got Leicester sort of coming up a bit towards mid-table, and you got teams like Bournemouth and Leeds sort of plummeting in the last few games. So I think the trend will continue. I think Leicester will probably be quite safe mid-table come maybe even the international break. But I think you'll have Leeds, Southampton, Forest to be down there. You'll have Wolves down there if they don't sort themselves out. Unfortunately for Forest, like we touched on earlier, the quality of the Premier League this season is probably the highest it's ever been, and Forest are falling victim to that a little bit. If you look at if there's 3 teams Forest are going to finish above, you're struggling really. So I struggle to see anything other than Forest being in the bottom 3 by at least Christmas time. And the way the season's gone so far, obviously things can change, but despite results like this, still not looking good for Forest, just because of the quality of the other team. I think Leeds are obviously plummeting. Leeds are not looking great at the minute, but we've seen the quality they do have and what they are able to do. Beating, was it Chelsea 4-0 at home? I'm not sure Forest are able to do that. Leeds have the potential to be a very solid Premier League team, but other than last weekend's result, not really seen that much in Forest. So I think it will probably be by Christmas time. I think it'll probably be a bottom 3 of Forest, Wolves, and Leeds.
Okay. And it's interesting you mentioned not being able to pick 3 teams that Forest could actually finish above. And at the start of the season, we'd have definitely pegged Bournemouth and Fulham. But as we've seen, we lost to both of those, and Fulham are actually high flying at the moment in 7th.
Sorry. I forgot to touch on Bournemouth. Bournemouth are starting to plummet down the table. They'll definitely be down there by, I don't know, maybe they've got a bit too big a buffer zone between now and Christmas, but certainly after Christmas they'll be down there for sure.
I think I agree. I think the bottom three at Christmas will be as it is now. I can't see too much changing before then. And then we get the nice long World Cup break as well as the January transfer window. And then I think the table will start to come into its final form with Forest still at the bottom.
Brilliant. So you're saying whatever happens, it's Forest and Wolves definitely down there. I think Leicester. Would you agree that Leicester would probably, they're moving up at the moment, they probably won't be down there?
I think Leicester are safe. The squad they have is far too good to even consider them. I think to be going down. I think they've been a bit unlucky with a few results. They haven't been playing great football though, but they will. You'd assume they will get it back in gear with the quality they have. Wolves and Forest, I think it's fair to say, have both been pretty abysmal, apart from you beating us. And I think the only other team that's going to be joining them down there is Southampton. They've been relegation candidates year after year after year, and I think this is finally the year that we'll be saying goodbye.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Go on, Nick. Were you going to add something?
Oh, no, I was just thank God Southampton will be going down because they're one of the teams. If we're building an ultimate Premier League 20, I'm not sure Southampton would feature. So
they're not in there, are they? No, not at all.
I'm all for the cleanse of the Premier League. Get all the small clubs down. Get your Bournemouths, your Southamptons, and your Brightons. Get them all down and bring up some proper clubs. We're going in the right direction, by the way, in the last few years. We've had Forest, Villa, Leeds all come up. So
yeah, I can't see Brighton going down anytime soon, though. Can't see Brighton going down anytime soon. Then I think it'll be a long while till Sheffield Wednesday and Derby are up.
I'm just talking. I wouldn't have Derby in my ultimate 20, but
I had a feeling you might say that.
But yeah, obviously you can't have your perfect 20, but get as close to that as possible. So Brighton will have to stay, unfortunately, but seems like Bournemouth can go.
Yeah, as long as Forest don't make way for Brighton, then I'm more than happy with that idea of the OG Premier League 20. So that's fine with me. Okay, right. We touch on this every week. The big debate is, why do I not have Erling Haaland in the team? Fantasy football. We've got Harry in today because Harry can sort of provide a bit of levity for me since in our own mini league that we have, Nick is currently sat third. I'm in seventh and Harry is bottom. So I'm not the worst on the show today. Harry, thank you so much for being here. And yet you still have Erling Haaland. So Nick, maybe I'm not completely in the wrong about avoiding him. But yeah, go on, Nick. I mean, you're saying third. You're having a good season. Don't say Erling Haaland. What's been the one main thing don't say. What's been the thing that's kept you up near the top?
Well, look, the two players I highlighted at the start of the season. So your cheap player to be ever present in his side, and the one expensive player that will guarantee you points. And both of them have been very fruitful for me this season. Saliba and Haaland. Those two, I think, they've been raking in the points. And I think what helps is, to be honest with you, just picking a good team at the start, getting a little bit lucky, to be honest with you, so not having to make too many changes. But yeah, Saliba definitely. 4 million is an absolute bargain.
Yeah, I remember you making the Saliba shout, and I think we all sort of wrote you off a bit because he's a centre back playing for Arsenal that like they wouldn't be top four, and a centre back's not going to score. But Saliba's definitely proven that wrong. Yeah, I knew you were going to mention Haaland. Have you had him captain the entire time, or have you ever missed out on a captaincy? Paul?
Yeah, I've missed the boat a few times, rather foolishly. There was a couple of weeks ago, he scored a brace. I think it was it Brighton, where I had someone else as captain. So when everyone else captains Haaland and you don't have him, you lose half points on the rest of the field. So I think most of the time you just have to captain him.
Yeah, so this is where I'm going wrong. You're captain Haaland and get full points, not half points, and I'm captain Salah and getting minus points. So it's just poor decision making from me. I have to say is every fault of my own. Harry, what's happened? I mean, I saw you play bench boost last week and you still fell below the average points. What's
going on? Was effective though. I got 7 points from Ward.
Lad, I had 24 points sat on my bench that didn't come on. That's your 7 points.
Well,
not.
The key area to highlight is the persistency to not move away from Liverpool Football Club. Normally, that strategy in fantasy football will serve you very well. Having the likes of Salah captained every week, one of the other front three, and then maybe one of the wing backs. But this year, it hasn't. And I think that is heavily reflected into my current points total. I captained Salah near enough every week without fail, apart from last week where I captained Nunes. He didn't play, so Salah was captained.
Yeah.
And this week,
sorry, go on.
This week I've also captained Nunes, but Nunes has only recently come in. I played my wild card a couple of weeks ago. When did Haaland blank? Yeah, and that was probably versus us. And I had Solanke on the bench for his 12-point haul, I think it was. So there's been a few. I don't think you can call that a lapse of judgment, but there certainly have been a few
missed opportunities. More like
yeah,
definitely. Well, Nick, actually, and both of you, since you both have Haaland, he's he looks like a doubt to be playing this week with his injury. Have you considered different captaincy option? I mean, Kane's got Bournemouth away, Salah's got Leeds at home. Either of those? Well, those are the two main appeals, surely. Which one are you going for?
I've kept Haaland as captain just in case, and had Salah as vice captain. So I've got the benefit of having a strong bench anyway, so I can afford to miss Haaland for 1 week and bring in like a Trossard, whoever it is, off the bench. So Salah as vice captain just in case Haaland does miss out, and then Trossard will probably come in. So I'm pretty easy. It's pretty easy decision for me.
Harry?
I captained Nunes with Salah as vice.
Oh, yeah, of course,
yeah.
I guess Nunes is in line for a start now after scoring.
I'd hope so.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of his.
I can tell that. I knew you'd say it. Do you know what? I don't think I've come across a Liverpool fan. Nick, Harry as well, you'll be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but a Liverpool fan that's actually slated Nunes yet this season. Every single one of them seems to want to defend every single one of his terrible misses with, but he scored a goal.
I won't defend his misses. His finishing is incredibly inconsistent. We should have had more goals as a result of him not passing or hitting the post. But he hasn't played a consistent amount of time. Yeah, he had a 3-game suspension. That is his fault. He's a hothead. That's fine. But do you not want that in your number 9? Do you not want a bit of an arrogant so-and-so? Having a go at defenders, winding people up, winding opposing fans up. Jamie Vardy does it expertly at Leicester.
I mean, yeah, you're right. You love him if he's on your team and you hate him if he's not, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have, Nick, you probably agree with this, the total opposite in Taiwo Wanyi. Probably, like, I've seen him miss open goals, and yet he's just stood there laughing and smiling. Maybe we've lost Nick.
Yeah, he looks pretty frozen.
Nick looks very frozen. Okay, well, I'll just back my own point up then. Yeah, Taiwo Wanyi looks to be like the most happiest, carefree striker. I mean, he was playing against his old club last week, so probably wasn't going to kick off or anything like that, but yeah, lovely man Taiwo Wanyi. Scores some fantastic goals, especially in the 57th minute against Liverpool at home. But yeah, we won't. So, I tell you what, that ball in from Steve Cook was
it was great, but didn't it come off the post before it fell to?
It did, yeah. Wanyi had to miss the first one. It was a wall pass just to set himself up, essentially.
So lucky.
Here we are. I think we've got Nick back.
Sorry, Nick? I apologise.
Oh, I think that was a half-baked apology, but it's probably something to do with his Wi-Fi living in Liverpool and all.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's all right, mate. You're a bit frozen, but no, here we are.
Yeah, looks like he's back now.
Did you hear my expletives?
Thankfully not.
No, we didn't, fortunately.
Right. Okay.
Good job. I was just telling Harry about, because Harry's describing Nunes as type of striker you want on your team, winds up the opposition fans, that sort of thing. I was saying a Wanyi is basically the total opposite.
Right, well, Nunes is the type of player I'd want playing against me, to be honest with you. Misses chances before. I'd quite happily face him every week, to be honest with you. Obviously, he's physically he's quick, but he can't finish with toffee, so I'm quite happily face him every week, to be honest with you. I Wanyi as well. I don't know, I'm still not sold on him. He's too nice, and he's not Keenan Davis, is he? He's not Keenan Davis, and that's what he's been putting the team for. So he's a bit more goal scorer than Keenan Davis, but yeah, I don't know. The jury's still out on him, I'm afraid. So
I mean, you were like slating him a little bit even back in pre-season, or not slating him, but you were skeptical. You were very skeptical even back like the second friendly we played. I mean, I remember you telling me, and I was like, oh come on, like give him a bit of time, but he's coming good, but not necessarily with bags of quality.
He just doesn't look like a natural footballer. It looks like a struggle whenever he's on the ball. He looks like a traditional donkey, like what we're saying, but obviously he's got a bit more of him than that, but I'm still not sold on him, yeah.
No, that's fair enough. I think we'll finish off today's episode with our predictions for next game week. As you're all probably aware, we've got the Predictions League up on Twitter. Harry, I don't know if you're past that yet. Do you use Twitter much? Do you use Twitter much?
Oh no, but I can download if need be.
That was the correct response. Yeah, we'll get you added to the predictions group chat. We've got a running league, and we'll have a little prize at the end of the season for whoever finishes top. Unlike fantasy football, I'm currently top of the league. Nick is joint second.
I've only predicted about 4 games as well. I think I've got them all right.
Yeah, you do quite well. Yeah, your success rate's pretty high, actually. Yeah.
There we go.
I'm pretty sure Macca's has predicted every single game, and he's got like 1 correct. So yeah, there's obviously a bit more skill to it than he's learned yet. But anyway, yeah, we'll run through the games quickly. Obviously, the 12:30 kickoff. Leicester versus Man City. Leicester still in the relegation zone, but improving a bit against Man City. Harry, how do you think this one will go?
There's only one winner, isn't it? It's Man City. I don't think if I got a score, we'll go 3-0.
3-0 City. Gillo?
Without Haaland, I don't think that'll be as free-flowing as normal, but I can still see like a 2-0 win for Man City.
Fair enough. So despite Haaland, which they've not had for the last 2 seasons, you still think it will only be 2-0 against a team in the relegation zone?
Well, Leicester have perked up a little bit, and they've sort of built a system around Haaland, so it'll be interesting to see how they adapt without it, because I don't know, a Phil Foden and a false 9 versus a big unit of Erling Haaland is a completely different prospect, so we'll have to wait and see, I suppose.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm going to go 4-0. City will steamroll at anyone inside. I think Leicester have been very defensively vulnerable, despite Danny Ward fooling you into 2 clean sheets in 2 games. Next up, we've got Bournemouth at home against Spurs. We touched on earlier Bournemouth dropping down the table. Spurs haven't been playing well themselves. Harry, how do you think this one will go?
Yeah, I think that'll be a 1-0 Spurs win. I don't think Bournemouth, again, are really going to put up much of a fight against this Spurs team. They don't look like they put up much of a fight against many of the top 6. So Spurs, they lost versus Sporting, didn't they? Or did they manage just
Sporting? Just, yeah.
They're not coming off the back of a win, so I think they'll want to get their fortunes turning around. But I don't think it'll be too comfortable, so I think it'll be a 1-0 win.
Nick?
2 struggling sides at the minute. I think Bournemouth will see Tottenham there for the taking, and especially, when they came to City Ground, what they do is they sit back and sort of lead you on to believe that maybe they're not as good as they are, and then they just whack you on the counter. I think Tottenham 1 or 2-0. I'll go with 2-0 to be different.
Okay, I'm going to go 1-0, same as Harry. You just know it's going to be a Harry Kane penalty in the 70th minute, something like that, and it's, game done at that point. Yeah, you're both fairly close predictions. It'd be very interesting to see if it's anything different to that, whether that be a Bournemouth win or a Spurs battering. We'll see. Brentford Wolves, probably the least interesting game of the weekend. Both teams in pretty terrible form. Both teams not really great attacking wise. Harry?
I think they're both going to be very up for it. So I think it's going to be a very end-to-end game. And a lot of people are going to be writing this game off, but I think it's going to be a 2-2 draw.
Oh, very interesting. I'd love it to be a 2-2 draw. That would spice up match of the day a little bit. Nick?
I think there's a stat. Is it Wolves have only scored 4 or 5 goals this season? Brentford's a tough place to go. So I think I'll see a 2-1 Brentford win.
2-1 Brentford. I'm going 0-0. I think defences will be on top. Not much creativity in either side. Going 0-0. Yeah, as boring as I imagine it will be. Then we've got Brighton-Chelsea, which this season is basically a Champions League clash. Brighton are at home. We'll start with Nick this time. Nick, how do you see this one going?
Brighton tend to be better away from home this season than they do at home. Chelsea, there's a few doubts over their heads for me, but they're still Chelsea, still a good start. I think Chelsea will probably get a 1-0 win.
Yeah, Harry, I mean, before you answer, let's not forget that this is Graham Potter against his former side. Yeah. I don't know if that changes your prediction at all, Nick, but Harry, will go to you.
Yeah, I think the first half is going to be an absolute snooze fest. I think Graham Potter's going to get the lads in at half time, change some things, give them a good old talking to, and I think Chelsea will win 2-0.
Okay, very interesting. I'm gonna go 1-0 Chelsea. I think you're right. It'll be a snooze fest first half, and then Potter will be like, "Okay, lads, like I left these for big money and better players. We really need to do something about this." But by the way, did either of you see that Havertz goal? Because I've been writing Havertz off for a while, but against Salzburg the other day, he scored an absolute screamer, showing signs of his potential at least. But yeah, anyway, we'll move on. Crystal Palace, Southampton, a little bit of a derby, or am I getting that one mixed up with? I might
Not really.
mix it with South.
Yeah.
I might be mixing up Southampton, Brighton here,
Yeah.
but
Isn't
Palace,
Palace Brighton a derby as well?
Yeah.
I
Well,
think,
derby. It's not
yeah,
really
yeah.
derby.
It's called something.
Yeah.
perhaps I'm just trying to spice up what could be a very uninteresting affair. Nick, we'll start with you. How do you see this one going?
I'm going to keep it sharp, like short and blunt, because it's going to be a bit of a boring game. 1-0 Palace. It's just going to be one of those. Just they're going to grind out a 1-0 win.
Yeah,
Probably
Harry?
so hard on someone.
Yeah, I think 2-0 Palace.
2-0 Palace? Yeah, I mean, do you know what? At the start of the season, Palace looked fantastic. I know they lost 2-0 to Arsenal in the first game, but Vieira looks an exciting young manager. And with the talent they've got, Eze, Zaha, Elise, I thought they'd do big things. But yeah, it hasn't really worked out that way this season. I'm going to go 1-0 Palace because Southampton are just dreadful, if we're being honest. Newcastle, Villa. Newcastle flying high, but Villa also off the back of a 4-0 win. So, Harry, you go this time. How do you see this one?
Newcastle at home, long way for Villa to travel. Newcastle, they're playing for top 4 this year. So, Villa, I think it's a tough one because they've got the new manager. Is it Unai's first game? Maybe not.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it
it
is.
will be.
I think they'll show up. They're all fighting for their place. So I think it's going to be a 1-1.
Interesting. Nick?
Probably one of the most interesting games of the weekend because obviously Villa sacked Gerrard and they won 4-0 against Brentford. Newcastle, obviously, we don't know how good Newcastle can be this season, whether they've already hit their ceiling of sort of loitering around top 4, whether they can solidify their position in the top 4, we won't know. So I can see Newcastle. I went up to Newcastle at the start of the season and they're very good at home. I think there's probably a 1 or 2-0 win for Newcastle.
Okay. I was going to go. Harry's actually changed my opinion a little bit here. I was going to go with the 1-0 Newcastle because they've been so solid defensively. But you're right. Everybody's going to be fighting for their place under Emery. Coutinho's been basically asleep this entire season. And I think if he wants to really impress and kick on, salvage his career, I think he'll show up. And I think 2-2, which might be a bit of a rogue shout considering Newcastle's defensive record. But yeah, I'm going to go with 2-2. Anyway, for the 5:30 kickoff, probably one of the most boring games to be televised so far this season. We've got Fulham versus Everton. Harry, how do you see this one going?
I haven't seen much of Everton this season, but I think Mitrovic is difficult to contain. So I think it'll be 1-0 Fulham.
1-0 Fulham, interesting. That would stand them in good stead. I think that moves them up to 5th or 6th, which would be unheard of at the start of the season. Nick, your thoughts?
I think it's actually another game worth watching, to be honest. Everton obviously come off their 3-0 win against Palace. And Fulham are a pretty good side this season. And Everton have been in pretty good form. So I think it'll be a tight one. I think I'll go for 1-1. Mitrovic and
Iwobi.
Gordon, 1-1.
Gordon, okay.
Oh.
I was going to say, it won't be somehow the second top sister in the Premier season. Yeah, you did freeze, Nick. Yeah, it won't be somehow
Gordon
the second.
And Mitrovic.
Gordon and Mitrovic 1-1. Okay. I'm going to go with 1-0 Everton. I know Fulham are high flying and Mitrovic probably will score. In fact, I've got Mitrovic in my fantasy team, but I still don't back him. Everton have been really solid defensively this season, like under the radar solid. And yeah, I think 1-0, despite it being away from home, I think that would be a great win for Everton. I think it's the most realistic. Anyway, here we come to Liverpool versus Leeds. The for some reason 7:45 kickoff on Sky. Harry, since you're the Liverpool fan, we'll start with you. Obviously, you're going to predict a win, but
yeah,
what's the margin?
Back at Anfield, got a point to prove in the Prem. Coming off the back of a 3-0 win versus Ajax. Nunes back in the starting 11. I don't think you can say anything. I think we probably will concede because Trent can't defend. So I'm going to go 4-1 Liverpool.
4-1 Liverpool. Nick?
I was about to say something very similar. I think Leeds are in disarray. Liverpool obviously got a point to prove. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 Liverpool win.
3-1 Liverpool. Out of interest, by the way, how many of those goals does Mo Salah score for each of you?
2.
I'll say 1.
Okay. 1? Well, he's my captain fancy this weekend. I'm going 4-1 Liverpool. Salah hat-trick. He needs to bounce back eventually. I think this will be the game. Against a shaky Leeds defence. So I'm hoping.
Is Nunes getting the other goal?
No, he's not. Let's be honest, he's not. It's going to be Trent Alexander-Arnold from a free kick.
Nunes with the own goal, I'm saying.
Yeah, that's where the ropey defending comes in. It's Nunes being man marked out of the game ban by Van Dijk, and he just sticks one past him. But anyway, on to Sunday's fixtures. Arsenal versus Nottingham Forest. Nick, we'll start with you.
I can see a 1-1. I'm sort of hoping it'd be a 1-1 rather than expecting. But I
Mate,
don't
that's
like why the pair you laughing? We've just beaten Liverpool, for Christ's sake. I think I'll go for a 1-1. You have to.
Can you see a 1-1, or are you hoping for a 1-1?
I hope and sort of see a 1-1.
Mate, I'll be happy if we don't get absolutely humiliated, and I know that you'll take problem with that because you said something similar on Twitter earlier. But I'm okay. I have to back Forest. This is a hopeful one rather than a realistic one. I'm going 1-0 Forest. Realistically, I think we'll get done in like 4-1. Genuinely, Harry.
I think 2-0 Arsenal. I don't think you're going to score. They look pretty good defensively, but I also think Arsenal, they never seem to punish a side. So,
we did see them draw to Southampton last week, yeah,
so
and again,
I think 2-0.
Okay, because actually, Nick, while you mentioned a 1-1, that's exactly what Southampton got last weekend, and the three of us have sat here and gone, yeah, Southampton are getting relegated. So,
if we sit back and straight Arsenal, I don't know, Arsenal, the Emirates. I've been to the Emirates. They go a bit quiet. Obviously, got the North London Forever song now at the start, but after that, they'll be very quiet. They'll get on the teams back. If we 0-0 after half an hour, I think they might be able to get a point at least.
Okay, interesting. And then we've got the final game of the weekend: Man United versus West Ham. West Ham coming off a bit of good form. Man U also with a decent bit of form, although they did celebrate that Chelsea 1-1 like they just won the league. How do you see this one going? Harry, we'll start with you.
I absolutely hate it when Man U win a game of football. So their fans are unbearable, and I live with 2 of them. So I'm going to go for West Ham 2-0.
Okay. I don't know how likely that is, but perhaps. Nick?
I think this has got a 1-0 Man United written all over it. I think I'd be willing to put 20 quid on it now because I can just see a 1-0 every day of the week.
Right. Maybe not the best use of your 20 quid, but because I'm going to go 0-0. I think it's going to be an absolute shutout. Both teams not wanting to drop points just before the World Cup. And I know it's a very boring prediction to round off the week, but it's just the way I see it. But anyway, I think we'll wrap things up here. Nick, Harry, it's been a pleasure having you both on. Harry, I hope you enjoyed your first time on the show. Thrilling. That's what we like to hear. Nick and I do our best. If you guys did enjoy the video and you're new around here, make sure to subscribe and definitely drop a like. Comment your predictions down below if you feel that way inclined. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Cheers.